For 10 years I believed my life was steady. Not perfect but real. I had a husband I trusted, a family I thought was loyal, and a future I was excited to step into. I never imagined that everything I knew could fall apart so quickly, or that the person who would help destroy my marriage would be my own sister. My sister Lisa lost her husband about a year ago. His death shattered her, and like everyone else in our family, I tried to support her in every way I could. But I didn't realize how much support she was getting from someone else. My husband, Rick. First it seemed innocent. Rick said he was just helping her through her grief, checking in on her, making sure she wasn't alone. I didn't think much of it. She was family. Why would I? But slowly things started to feel off. They were spending a lot of time together, usually when I wasn't home. When I asked about it, Rick brushed it off and said Lisa just needed someone who understood. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, I trusted my husband. I trusted my sister. One evening I came home earlier than usual. I walked into our bedroom and froze. Lisa and Rick were lying in our bed together. They were clothed, not facing each other, but still the sight made my stomach turn. It felt intimate in a way I couldn't explain. I asked them what the hell they were doing. They both acted confused, almost offended that I was upset. Rick said Lisa had been crying and needed comfort. Lisa stared at me like I was heartless for questioning it. Still, I told her to leave. I needed space. I needed to breathe. The next day I came home and opened the front door, only to find Lisa standing there, sobbing. Before I could even speak, she rushed past me and threw herself into Rick's arms. He held her tightly while she cried into his chest. Then, without even looking at me, she said she needed to talk to him alone and asked me to leave the room. I was stunned, humiliated. But I didn't want to make things worse, so I walked away, tears burning my eyes. That's when I heard sounds I'll never forget. Moaning. At first I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. But my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I walked back toward the bedroom and pushed the door open. They were kissing. Not a quick mistake. Not confusion. They were fully engaged, like I didn't exist. Something inside me broke. I ran to the bathroom, gagging, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. I locked myself in my room and cried until I felt hollow. An hour later, Rick came in. He wouldn't look at me. I asked him what was going on, what had been happening between him and my sister. He stayed silent while I cried, begged, and finally screamed for answers. Then, in the quietest voice imaginable, he said words that destroyed everything. He said he loved her. I lost control. I asked how 10 years of marriage could mean nothing. I asked how he could betray me with my own sister. I fell to the floor, sobbing, trying to understand how my life had become unrecognizable in a single afternoon. Rick said he regretted marrying the first woman he'd ever been with. He said spending time with Lisa made him realize she was what he really wanted. That's when I told him something that changed everything. I told him I might be pregnant. He didn't panic. He didn't beg. He calmly said he would support me, but that he was still leaving to be with my sister. He even offered to give me everything in the divorce, as long as I let him go. I screamed at him to get out. As he left, he tried to hug me. And in that moment, I realized the man I married might already be gone. I thought that was the worst night of my life. But the next morning, a single test, a handwritten letter, and one unexpected text message would make everything even more confusing. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. My husband and my sister, like a nightmare looping on repeat. My chest felt tight, my head ached, and my entire body felt heavy with disbelief. I didn't want to wake up, but morning came anyway. The first thing I did was go to the pharmacy. I bought a pregnancy test and sat alone in the bathroom, staring at it while my hands shook. When the result came back negative, I felt two emotions at once, relief and heartbreak. We had been trying for a baby for months. I never thought I'd be grateful to not be pregnant, but that morning I was. Later, I forced myself to leave the house to buy groceries. I needed air. Normalcy. anything to distract me. When I opened the mailbox, I saw an envelope with my sister's handwriting. My stomach dropped. I waited until I got home, then sat at the kitchen table holding the letter for several minutes before I finally opened it. Inside was an apology. At least that's what she called it. Lisa wrote that she had been emotionally shattered after losing her husband. She said spending time with Rick helped her feel alive again, and that somewhere along the way she fell in love with him. She claimed she never planned for it to happen, but once she realized her feelings were real, she couldn't walk away. She promised that nothing physical happened before the kiss I caught them in. She said she needed me in her life. She said she hoped I could forgive her. By the time I finished reading, my hands were numb. Not once did she acknowledge how deeply she had hurt me. Not once did she take responsibility beyond things just happened. I folded the letter and shoved it into a drawer. I couldn't cry anymore. I felt empty. A little while later, my phone buzzed. It was Rick. I didn't answer. Instead, he sent a text saying he still loved me and that we could find a way to fix this. Fix what? He had already chosen my sister. He had already walked out. Yet here he was, acting like we were just going through a rough patch. My mind spiraled. If I wasn't pregnant, did that make it easier for him to leave? Or easier for him to come back? I hated myself for even wondering. That evening I called my mom and told her everything. I expected shock. Maybe anger on my behalf. Instead, she said something that made my heart sink even further. She admitted that Lisa had already told her about having feelings for Rick, before everything exploded. My mom said she didn't tell me because she thought she could convince Lisa to let it go. She believed it was over. I felt betrayed all over again. Days passed in a blur. Barely ate. Barely slept. Then I went back to the letter, reading it again more carefully. This time I noticed something I missed before. Alongside the apology, Lisa had subtly blamed me. She wrote that watching my happy marriage was painful for her. That I flaunted my relationship in front of her while she was grieving. That Rick told her he never truly loved me. That I was just the safe choice. She ended the letter by telling me not to contact Rick anymore. If I needed anything, I should go through her. She said she would bring divorce papers in a few weeks. That's when confusion turned into rage. Nothing made sense. Rick told me he loved me. Lisa said he never did. One of them was lying, or both were. Then came the phone call that shattered whatever stability I had left. My father called and told me Lisa was pregnant. And she said the baby was Rick's. Before I could even process that, Rick called me. I answered, shaking with anger. I asked him how he could look me in the eyes and say nothing happened before that kiss. He said he was sorry. He said it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Then he said something so disturbing that my mind still reels thinking about it. He told me he could still get me pregnant if I wanted. When I screamed at him, he calmly explained that he loved both of us. That maybe he was polyamorous. That maybe this could work. That's when I started laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. Before I could respond, I heard Lisa's voice in the background asking who he was talking to. He said, "Nobody," and hung up. Minutes later, I got a text from Lisa. She said she'd bring the divorce papers in a week. She also said she and Rick were getting married next month, and I was invited, as long as I pretended I was never his wife. I stared at my phone, shaking. And the worst part, a small, broken part of me still wanted him. I wish I could say that was the moment I walked away. But instead, anger, jealousy, and heartbreak pushed me toward a decision that would destroy everything even further. I'm ashamed to admit this, but after that phone call, I couldn't stop thinking about what Rick said. First, it made me furious. The nerve he had, to betray me, get my sister pregnant, and still act like I was an option. But as the days passed, anger twisted into something darker. Something uglier. I kept imagining Lisa's smug face. The way she acted like she'd won. The way she spoke to me through letters and texts like I was an inconvenience instead of her sister. And slowly, painfully, a thought crept into my mind. What if I took back what she thought she stole? I hated myself for thinking it, but the idea wouldn't leave. Part of me wanted my old life back. My husband, my marriage, the future I thought we were building. But another part of me wanted revenge. I wanted Lisa to feel the pain she'd caused me. I wanted her to know that Rick would always choose me over her. Lisa did everything she could to limit my contact with Rick. I think she was afraid he'd come back to me if she didn't control the situation. She blocked me from his phone at times, monitored his messages, and demanded he keep his distance. But Rick didn't stop trying. He reached out through social media, emails, even mutual friends. Every message was the same. He missed me. He loved me. He made a mistake. Losing me made him realize I was the one. I told myself I was ignoring him, but the truth was, I wasn't blocking him completely either. Every message chipped away at my resolve. Eventually we started talking again. First it was cautious. Short conversations. Then longer ones. Late at night. Emotional. Intimate. When we finally met in person, it felt like time had rewound. He knew exactly how to touch me, how to speak to me, how to make me believe that everything between us was real again. He cried. He begged. He promised. I told him I wouldn't be with him unless he left my sister. He swore he would. He said being with her was a mistake born out of grief and confusion. He said she meant nothing compared to me. He said he was just waiting for the right time to end things with her, because he felt guilty about her pregnancy. I wanted to believe him. When Rick was with me, everything felt normal. Like the past year had never happened. Like my sister didn't exist. But every night he went back to her. And I accepted his excuses. I told myself it was temporary. That once he figured things out, he'd come back fully. I ignored every red flag because the alternative, losing him again, felt unbearable. Then I got pregnant. I hadn't restarted my birth control after we stopped trying for a baby months earlier. When I told Rick, he seemed happy. Ecstatic even. He said this was proof that we were meant to be together. For a moment, I believed my nightmare was over. I had my husband back. I was going to be a mother. My life felt whole again. So I turned a blind eye to everything else. It didn't take long for Lisa to find out. When she did, all hell broke loose. My phone exploded with messages from family members accusing me of doing this out of spite. They said I was trying to hurt Lisa. They said I was selfish. They weren't entirely wrong, but what they refused to see was that I was desperate. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted my life back. Lisa lost her mind. She sent me endless messages filled with rage and threats. She blamed me for destroying her happiness. She told me I deserved everything coming to me. It got so bad that I had to get a protective order. Instead of supporting me, my family turned on me completely. They said I went too far. They said I was tearing the family apart. One by one they stopped speaking to me. Rick was given an ultimatum. Cut me off or be cut off from the family. At first he said he needed time to decide. But his messages became less frequent. Colder. The pressure from my family to finalize the divorce grew stronger. And Rick started acting like the victim. He said I tempted him. That I made things harder by getting pregnant. That I should have known better. That's when it finally hit me. The man I loved wasn't coming back. By the time I reached 8 months pregnant, I had lost my husband, my sister, my family, and was about to realize I had lost myself too. By the time I reached 8 months pregnant, my life barely resembled anything I once recognized. The house was quiet in a way that felt suffocating. No calls, no visits, no family checking in to see how I was doing. The same people who once told me they loved me unconditionally now acted like I didn't exist. Rick barely spoke to me anymore. When he did, it felt cold and distant, like he was talking to a stranger instead of the woman he'd spent a decade with. The man who once promised to protect me now sounded annoyed whenever I brought up the baby or our future. The ultimatum from my family hung over everything. They told Rick he had to choose. Me or them. And slowly, painfully, I realized he was choosing them. He told me he felt torn, but his actions said otherwise. He stopped visiting, stopped checking in, stopped acting like this baby mattered at all. Instead, he complained about how complicated I had made his life. One day, during one of our last real conversations, he said something I'll never forget. He told me I shouldn't have gotten pregnant. Not, I'm scared. Not, I don't know how to handle this. Just that. Like my pregnancy was a mistake he blamed entirely on me. Even though he was the one who kept pursuing me, the one who begged me to believe him, the one who promised he would leave my sister. I finally saw the truth. Rick didn't love either of us. He loved attention, control, being wanted. The realization hurt more than anything else had so far. My sister was gone from my life completely. After the protective order, she painted herself as the victim. She told everyone I was unstable, manipulative, and dangerous. My family believed her. They never asked for my side. They never asked if I was okay. Friends started pulling away too. No one wanted to take sides, but it was clear which side felt safer to stand on. I went from having a support system to having nothing. I sat alone most nights, one hand on my stomach, feeling my baby move and wondering how I was supposed to do this by myself. I thought about adoption. The guilt ate at me. I didn't want to give her up, but I was terrified I wouldn't be enough. I was scared I'd resent her. Or worse, that she'd grow up feeling unwanted because of the mess that brought her into the world. The hardest part wasn't losing Rick. It was losing the version of myself who believed in love. I replayed every decision over and over, wondering where I went wrong, why I ignored the warning signs, why I let desperation override my self-respect. I wanted happiness so badly that I accepted lies as promises. Rick sent one final message. He said he felt bad for how everything turned out, but that he loved Lisa. That being with her was simpler, that maybe one day I'd understand. He ended it by saying I had tempted him back into the relationship, and that this situation was partly my fault. I stared at my phone in disbelief. This was the same man who chased me relentlessly. The same man who begged for another chance. The same man who swore I was the love of his life. Now he was rewriting history to ease his conscience. That night, I cried harder than I ever had before. Not because I wanted him back, but because I finally understood that the man I missed never really existed. He wasn't the husband I married. He was someone else entirely. And I had destroyed myself trying to bring back a memory. As my due date crept closer, fear settled in. Real fear. The kind that keeps you awake at night. The kind that whispers that you're alone, unprepared, and broken. But there was one thing I knew for certain. I couldn't keep blaming myself forever. Had been hurt, manipulated, betrayed by my husband, my sister, and my family. And while I made mistakes, I wasn't the monster they painted me to be. I was just a woman who loved too deeply. I wish this story ended with justice or closure, but the final realization I came to would leave me questioning whether love ever truly existed at all. I don't know exactly when I hit rock bottom. There wasn't a single dramatic moment. No final argument. No last phone call. Just a quiet realization that I was completely alone. Rick stopped reaching out altogether. No more apologies. No more mixed signals. No more promises he never intended to keep. When I finally accepted that he was gone for good, it felt less like heartbreak and more like grief, for a life that never really existed. The man I married for 10 years was a version of him that only showed up when it suited him. And once I stopped serving a purpose, I disappeared. The silence from my family hurt almost as much. My parents refused to speak to me. My sister erased me from her life while telling everyone I was the villain. Relatives I grew up with blocked me or pretended I wasn't there. Losing my husband was devastating. Losing my entire family felt unbearable. Friends slowly faded away too. Some didn't want to choose sides. Others quietly judged me. Invitations stopped. Messages went unanswered. I couldn't blame them. It was easier to stay away from the mess than confront it. Most days, I sat alone in my living room, feeling my daughter move inside me, wondering how I ended up here. I thought about all the things I did wrong. I ignored my instincts. I believed words instead of actions. I let fear of being alone push me into accepting half love and full lies. I wanted happiness so badly that I clung to it even as it cut me deeper. I don't excuse my choices, but I understand them now. I was grieving my marriage while trying to survive betrayal from every direction. I was vulnerable, desperate, human. Rick never loved either of us the way love is supposed to work. He loved being wanted. He loved control. He loved having options. My sister didn't steal him from me. He was never truly mine to begin with. That realization hurt, but it also freed me. Because if he could walk away from his pregnant wife and blame her for his own choices, then the man I missed was nothing more than a fantasy I created to cope with losing him. I don't know what the future holds. I'm terrified of raising this baby alone. I worry about money, exhaustion, and whether I'll be strong enough on the days I already feel broken. I worry she'll ask about her father one day, and I won't know how to answer without passing down my pain. But I also know this. She didn't ruin my life. She might save it. For the first time since everything fell apart, I'm learning to choose myself. I'm going to therapy. I'm rebuilding slowly. I'm learning what boundaries actually mean. I'm learning that love without respect is not love at all. I still have moments where I miss him. I still have nights where the grief sneaks up on me and knocks the wind out of my chest. But I no longer want the man who broke me. I want the woman I was before I forgot my worth. And maybe, one day, the woman I'm becoming will be even stronger. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the worst betrayal isn't what someone does to you. It's what you do to yourself by staying when you should have walked away. And if you're reading this while standing at the edge of a decision that feels impossible, choose yourself, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. If you were in my place, would you have walked away the first time? Or do you think love is worth fighting for no matter the cost?